rightly said, I am here to listen to you and not give a lecture on what we did. However, looking at the detailed sessions that have been outlined, I see they are concentrating on the development control regulations and not on the report which has been prepared to support why those particular set of regulations have been formulated. That's the risk we run of writing a 500-page document, which people find it very difficult to read. In short, I would like to outline the principles that we have followed in preparation of this development plan, as distinct from what was there earlier in the development plan as well as DCRs. The first principle is that the previous plan was based on the assumption that population of Mumbai can be controlled. And the plan was based on the assumption that Mumbai's population can be controlled at 9.8 million population, and the excess growth will happen in the rest of the region. Of course, that hasn't come true, because in 2011 the population is 12.45 million. So we have in this plan, we have been very realistic right in the beginning, that we have not made any assumptions about the controlling population, but go with the trend and how much population Mumbai will have. So we go with the assumption that by 2034, Mumbai's population will be around 14 million, because the rate of growth of population has significantly come down in the past, and that is going to continue. So we will have, instead of 12.45 of 2011, we will have about 14 million population. Now in the past, what was assumed that the way to control population in Mumbai is by controlling FSI. That was another misnomer and a myth that we have tried to dispel. The problem with that approach was that controlling FSI meant creating scarcity of development rights in the market. And the market was thoroughly distorted by this notion. The demand per capita for floor space was significantly increasing. In the 60s and 70s, most of Mumbai was built by way of one-bedroom apartments. Nobody probably heard three-bedroom apartments in those days. But from mid-80s, when the income started rising and the housing finance was available in a significantly different fashion and more easily available, the demand for floor space increased. So you started getting 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom, 4-bedroom, somewhere in between 3.5 bedroom also, which I've never understood what is half a bedroom is. But that is the kind of distinct change which was occurring. And the FSI was still held back. Not only held back, but the land shrunk. The land which was available for development went away because of CRZ1 and CRZ2s. The areas in Lokhandwala particularly, which was possible prior to 91, became impossible after 92. And those who are familiar with Mumbai, in Andheri, beyond Dhaki Colony, there was nothing but the tidal land. Now that could be developed because it was possible to develop that land. Now that is stopped. So in such cases, now you currently listen to the debate that no development zone has gone, this has gone, FSI is increasing. So you neither grow this way nor this way. Then what will you have? Now that is the problem that we have tried to address. So you will find FSI ranging from 2 to 8. That is the range that has been provided. But that I think probably will be discussed in more details. The other problem largely which was there in the previous plan and the DCRs was the extremely complicated manner in which it was done. So if you look at land use zoning, there was R, R1, R2, there was C1, C2, there was I1, I2, I3, all that has been removed now. There is not even R, there is RC. So you can easily do mixed use development. And there is CR also. So you have dominant use as commercial, but you can still do residential. So there is no problem. and industrial, one single zone of industrial. And there is now one area which is natural area, which has to be conserved, like the mangroves and national park, etc. But the old NDZ has gone. Now that itself has become a matter of contention. So if you want to retain NDZ and also want to restrict FSI, where would Mumbai's population will get housing? So that's the question which needs to be answered. The other area which is also linked with FSI is the manner of computation of FSI. Over the years, on one hand it was shown that FSI is controlled at one, but there was a long list of exemptions granted and people made lot of smart use of those exemptions, which you are quite aware of, and that had to be curtailed in 2012 through the introduction of compensatory fungible FSI. Unfortunately, that word compensatory is not mentioned, only fungible is mentioned. But I think compensatory is important objectively. So we have gone a step further and said everything will be counted in FSI. There is no exemption list and everything will therefore be counted in FSI. This is the simplification which was overdue, I think, looking at the smartness with which people were operating. This again is then linked with TDR. Now TDR is also simplified. TDR can be received by surrendering land for public purposes, which was as in the past, and TDR can also get generated through slum redevelopment and development of cess building. However, the generation of TDR will be limited because now the FSI, permissible FSI itself has increased. There will be no distinction between slum TDR and non-slum TDR, so that complication is also gone. TDR was permitted only northwards. The idea was that it should flow from high value area to low value area, but planners' desires are always beaten by the market. And that we have learned because FSI was flowing from south to northwest, not necessarily north. So that could allow TDR to flow from Manpur to Juhu or Andheri. Now this has been also rationalized. If the TDR will be related to the values in the originating area and the values in the receiving area. So that will be useful. It can flow anywhere. There is no restriction of direction, but it will be related to the prices. The other important area is about reservations. There was a long category of reservations. Individual names of institutions or places were treated as reservations. That has all been rationalized. So there are some 300 odd reservation categories. Now it has been brought down to some 35 or so. And the reservations also have been rationalized in that sense, and that is why there is some controversy which keeps on appearing in the newspapers. But that is on account of grouping of reservations into broad categories. The old concept of accommodation reservation continues, but in a simplified form. And the important thing which this plan has, which I would like to highlight, is that the previous plan was based on planners know everything for the next 20 years. Planners don't know anything. That is the basic fundamental from which we started. That how the city's history is going to unfold over the next 20 years is something unknown. 10 years back we didn't know how we are going to use telephones. 10 years back we didn't know how we are going to do banking as we do it today. So how are we going to know what the city will be in the next 20 years? To give a more concrete example, when Bandra Kurla was conceived, it was conceived for the purposes of decongesting South Mumbai. There was a proposal to move the wholesale cotton textile markets from Kalbadevi to Bandra Kurla complex. It was only when post 91 it was realized that there is a big potential for growth of financial services that it was turned into a financial services center, and now it has become an alternative banking district of Mumbai. So these kind of opportunities keep on happening in Mumbai, and Mumbai needs to seek those opportunities. That is the context in which the proposal of RA has been put in. That if Mumbai gets opportunities in future, where do you get the land for seizing those opportunities? And it has to be seen in that context and not in the context of removing the green spaces in Mumbai. And what is removed, so-called removal of green spaces is only 9% of RA area. 61 to 65% of the RA would remain as green, and real green, not the green in which it was envisaged in the no development zone. So this plan essentially allows Mumbai to grow, seizing the opportunities that will come in future, and not on the presumption that planners know everything, not only for today but for next 20 years. Thank you very much.